Okay, call the meeting to order. Finance Committee, today is Wednesday, March 13th. Have a roll call. We have Dominic, Joan, Glenn, David, Jerry, Pat, and Bernie, Chairman. Anything, citizens' participation? Being none, I'll move on. We approve the minutes of March 6th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of March 6th.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any corrections or comments?
Abstain.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. Okay, the Finance Committee, our spring town meeting. We go to a review of listening to the articles and the petitioners. We have one petitioned article, which was Article 21, the grant easement. And sir, give you first and you can go home early.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Brian Grady,
Please have a
GAF
seat.
Engineering,
Right there, sir.
here from Mr. Ziti, Mill Pond Diner. I don't know how much you folks know about this or what's exactly going on here. I'll explain what I know about it. There is quite a history, which you may have followed in some of the newspaper articles regarding the property and what's going on. I have a couple of copies of the easement plan here if you want to pass those around and take a look at them.
Are they the same, sir?
Yes, they are the
Thank
same. Mr. Ziti's
It's a restaurant.
currently without a sewer service connection at this time. The property has enjoyed connection to municipal sewer for many years. A disagreement with the neighbor, that sewer service has been severed. There are two properties that were served by a force main that goes across the street to the Tremont Nail property. The neighbor unilaterally severed that connection. It's currently in court right now, being addressed with no final resolution. So Mr. Ziti is looking to try to make the connection to the force main across the street on the Tremont Nail property through his property so that he's flying solo, doesn't have to rely on any common sewer with the neighbor. So to accomplish that, we...
Excuse me, just so we understand what we're looking at here. See, this is Cranberry Highway here,
Yeah,
and this is Mr. Ziti's property?
that's the Mill Pond Diner,
The
correct?
Pond Diner. This is Elm Street, and this is Tohonet Road.
Yep, and that's Fairing Tavern that you see that.
That's,
This is the tavern here.
this
Oh,
is the
that's
tavern
okay.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're
Alright.
looking at it from the street, this
Alright.
connection would be made to
So
the right of the
you're talking
tavern.
about this dashed line then?
All right, so this is over at
That's the
the
Tremont
nail factory.
Correct.
All right,
So currently, what happened was this sewer went over to here to a common pump chamber, which pumped it into the force main. That
Alright.
connection was severed. Mr. Ziti's currently functioning off of his septic tank and grease tank, which he's having pumped as needed every 3 days, once a week, acting as a tight tank. So that's a less than optimal condition. So what he's looking to do is reconnect to the municipal sewer system, and this easement is necessary to accomplish that.
and the easement would go across Elm Street and into the property that the town owns. At
Correct,
Tremont Nail.
correct.
It goes about 60 feet,
Yeah,
55,
sewer
66
through
feet.
what the, doesn't cross his property.
This is the elect,
So this is, he's
Yeah.
actually looking for, through you, Bernie, he's looking for an easement, right?
Correct, yeah.
Can I bring up something? I'm not correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going on past history that I try to remember, okay? The reason that he did that, am I right that the previous owner of the mill pond, he actually sold some land? Am I correct? And the land was sold, which had his sewer connection to it. So, the person before the gentleman who owns it now, what was his name, Clint? Bippy?
Goyette.
Yeah, what do they call him, BB or Bippy?
It was William Goyette. Bippy.
Okay. Am I right? He sold the land where his connection went through. So basically, the diner bit off his own foot. I know that this guy didn't buy it that way. I mean, he bought it as it is now. But the previous owner, am I right in saying that, Claire?
Well,
You're not sure? Okay.
You're going too far back, I think.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. In other words, they created this problem. Now he's coming to the town to fix it. I know that this guy didn't buy it that way.
Did they have a formal agreement originally? Are you aware of? Or was it a handshake?
I apologize, I'm not as familiar with the history. I've been working with Joe's veteran advocate. I haven't been dealing a lot directly with Joe. I've been working with his advocate, who's been helping him with the court case and evidence and things of that nature. So, and it's very long and involved. There are some deed references that refer to a common septic system that go back quite a way. So my guess is where there was a common septic system, then the sewer went over to there because it's been common for quite a while, but I don't know for certain.
So the only thing that we're really considering is whether or not it would, however it approach, but an easement to go across town property. It doesn't impact the town per se financially or any other way in terms of ownership or whatever.
Right, we're only looking for the easement. The sewer commissioners have voted to allow the connection. The selectmen have not voted on it yet.
No, they haven't.
But it's just an easement. From a financial standpoint, it helps the value of that property long term. It's more valuable with a sewer connection than without. So the highest and best use of that property is a better use with a sewer connection.
What about the sewer line from the diner up to Elm Street? Is this property, and it's going to be dug up?
Correct.
Who's the property owner, and is the property owner given permission?
Well, yeah, that's Mr. Ziti's
Okay,
property.
He does own that.
Yeah,
On the side of the,
he owns both sides of the tavern, so it will be on his property
yeah.
until it gets to the street. Then it would go under the street as a utility, but we only need the easement when we get on the Tremont Nail property.
Okay, and why is it a septic system, not an alternative?
It's an option. It's about twice as expensive as a sewer connection. We've got an estimate for an on-site sewage disposal system, which is north of $120,000. Connection to the municipal sewer, approximately half, so $60,000. Difference is a lot of money.
And an easement, do you pay the town for an easement? Does the town get any money for an easement right,
All, those final details would be negotiated eventually through the selectmen, I imagine.
Yeah. And if the road is tore up, it's usually
Right, it would be patched. What we would try to do is a directional drill so that we wouldn't dig up the road. We would, jack a pipe underneath it.
Bernie, through
Yes, go ahead.
liability though, for the town. Sewer line breaks on their easement, there is some, financially, I don't think that, whether they get money or not, I don't think it's gonna cost the town anything. Sewer's gonna get some revenue, but there would be some liability involved, correct?
Depends on
Sewer break, sewer flood,
depends on
I'm
the way
not
the
saying it'll
easement is
happen.
written, in that if you give permission to go across, they also take the responsibility that if there is a problem, that they are footing the cost for having it excavated and repaired and returned to its original shape. But that's all in terms of the agreement negotiated with probably the selectmen.
Yeah, it's not a unique circumstance. We were involved with one a few years ago, the multifamily dwelling across from the fan club. They had to get an easement across town property, go under 28 and connect to the sewer over by the Cumberland Farms. So that easement was granted, that's been all constructed. That easement language, gives the the property owner is responsible for his service, because even though it's on town line, it's his service until it gets to the municipal main. So he's responsible for all repairs into restoring the ground to, its pre-existing condition.
Indeed, and I'm reasonably familiar with it, having a friend who has that particular situation. And sewer mains don't break very often, and it's been 20 years since my friend has had their line going through private property. But they take the responsibility, that as my friend does, should any problem occur, that they are, or she is totally responsible for the cost and the actual repair work and the replacement of whatever they have to dig up, shrubs or whatever.
Absolutely, right.
But I know that they might not break, but they could break.
Indeed, that's why I say the language is in there to say that,
You're trying to do things with the buildings of the Tremont Nail, sewer flood. I mean, you take them. You got to do, pros and cons.
Indeed.
What's the town going to gain versus what it can lose?
well, that would be in the ballpark of the selectmen.
Yeah.
As far as our responsibility is concerned, we don't have to give an opinion on it,
Right.
because there's nothing to do directly financially.
Well,
But then by
yeah,
requirement of
that's-
town charter, everything comes before us.
And the sewer commissioners, by their vote, in their experience, obviously with their infrastructure, have no objection.
Indeed.
You're putting this onto a 2-inch force main. Any large development that takes place at Tremont Nail could actually exceed the capacity of a 2-inch main. So you may actually be constricting the future or the viability of future projects at Tremont.
I didn't think of that, Dave, yeah?
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know.
but that's something the town has to consider, which I believe the sewer commissioners should have taken into their consideration as well.
But again, they're not necessarily, nobody at this point is fully aware of what may happen at Tremont.
Right.
That's under, in 10 years we may know, but right now we don't.
Excuse me, David, could you clarify for me, excuse me, how would that affect the development at Tremont? Aren't they coming in directly into the pump station?
They are, but the main, force main that comes from Tremont over to, that eventually ends up at the water pollution control facility, this that they're planning on tying into is a 2-inch main, which is smaller than the drain that I have coming out of my house. That's pretty small. I think typically a household has a 4-inch.
It's 4-inch
Line
gravity,
it's
force
gravity
mains
feed.
generally are obviously a smaller
They
diameter.
can be smaller,
They-
yes,
They can,
for the same capacity because you're pushing through it, but,
well, they could carry much more capacity because they are pumped.
right. That depends upon what the incline on the 4-inch drain is too, but you're right. But I'm concerned about us restricting what we can do at Tremont with this.
Understood, sure.
And the possibility that the very existence of that main can limit the development without even having this connection, the development of Tremont, unless they do something.
Right, in this area, if there's a easement across it, it limits what you can do for development in that area.
Well, the easement doesn't limit it. What you're saying is the sewer service connection could potentially be a limiting factor. Ken may have a better idea what the potential is. They've had some interest in, or ideas of what they would like to see there. I don't know what the water use is for those uses.
Well, if we're going, one of the thoughts was a distillery making beer. They could use a lot of water. Just as it's a large, I'm just concerned that we might be restricting the future development of the Tremont Nail area by allowing this to come in.
Well, what you're allowing, or what you're considering, is to restore a connection that's been severed, that was enjoyed for a number of years, and through no action of his own, he's in the predicament that he's in.
Wait, who severed the line? Where did it connect before, sir?
It was a common connection on the adjacent piece.
Show me where. If you don't mind.
So this sewer went over to a pump chamber on this piece, and then the two properties pump it across the street.
Was this
So
other
this
line,
line was severed.
Yeah, it's been disconnected, and so Mr. Ziti is currently just pumping his sewage.
Because he owned all this land at one time. Oh, the diner owned all that land at one time.
Yeah, I don't know the history of the ownership or when things went in,
Yeah.
but, so all we're looking to do is restore a municipal service through no action of his own has been removed.
was that removed before he purchased it?
No.
Now, the fact that this connection has been severed physically, or however, there was no contractual agreement initially. Now, with the court case, not knowing how long that's gonna go through the courts, could that potentially restore that connection?
I don't know. I haven't been involved in the court case or provided any testimony or seen any of that. As I said, I'm working through his advocate. I understand that there was a agreement, handshake between the property owners at the time that, to share costs, and costs were shared at the time the pump chamber was put in. There's no document, from what I understand, showing that, or there may be. Last I heard was there may be something to that effect, but again, I'm not deep into that case. I don't know what's going on at the courts. I don't know what the resolution of the courts would be, but given the past history, I'm sure Mr. Ziti would like to be able to just rely on himself, if possible, rather than having a common service.
Yeah, preferred results.
And this is the closest main, obviously.
Correct.
Well, I would have thought there'd be something going on Granbury Highway, but no.
One would have thought so, but, is it, and again, being an engineer, you probably looked into this, but right now, I suspect that his original drain came in this direction and somehow or other connected to this line over here. I'd be more amenable to a line that came out, didn't go through the Tremont Nail property and connected in the road area.
Well, that's not the road,
That's more expensive because you have to
that's
dig up
the,
more of a road and repair more of a road.
well, if it was only in the road area, that's fine, but this is a railroad.
No, this is the railroad here. If
Right,
you came
that's-
up on this side of the railroad layout is here, drawn on your, I'm
Right.
talking about in this area before you cross the railroad.
Well, no, this whole line is the railroad layout, so.
Railroad right of way.
Right, correct, so that's like an act of Congress to get that done. It's like working with the power utilities, with the easements that they have going through the properties, and, trying to put a driveway across a power easement, or, that's,
Impossible almost to pull off.
Should ask Ken if he has any opinions on this.
Mhm. He happens to be here in the room. Of course, he's vulnerable.
Could we ask Ken if you have any thoughts on this easement? Being our town planner.
I have not looked at the technical aspects of this, other than to see that this is wastewater that's been going to this same system for a number of years prior to this, and for whatever reason, the line was cut, and this is the opportunity for them to reconnect and have it as a separate connection to the force main that they have already been pumping into previously. Being that it's a force main, it requires a pump station to eject it and send it down the line.
So they you put some sort of a pump station in here.
right, there'd be the septic tank and the grease trap to keep the grease out of the line,
Right.
and then would be a pump chamber, correct? And all those technical aspects would be reviewed and approved by the sewer department at the time.
Mhm.
The uses that we're talking about putting into the Tremont Nail Factory, don't know exactly what's gonna go in there. So although we have a number of uses that are being considered, I don't know what the water usage or the wastewater demands are gonna be that come from this. The one use that we have a lease for right now in the steel building does not have a high water demand or sewage discharge. And there'd be some pretreatment in that regard anyway.
Could it hinder us though? Having this tie in there down the road, like Dave said, could it hinder us putting something in there?
No, it wouldn't.
It would never hinder us.
No, it wouldn't. The only hindrance is the capacity of that 2-inch line for the wastewater that gets ejected through that system.
And it really has nothing to do with.
And has nothing to
into it.
do with their tie-in. That's something that the town's.
That would happen no matter if they tied in or not,
Yeah,
correct?
exactly.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, a lot of discussion to go on far beyond the fact of whether or not you need the right of way. But it's all been very interesting, and I'm sure all of us have enjoyed and appreciated your information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Want your other one, Doc? Oh, you wanna leave that?
I'll take it back if you want it, you're
Would you
welcome
like to
to
keep
it.
it, Dave? You wanna keep it?
I'd like to keep it if I may.
Sure thing, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on, thank you, sir.
I'll stay here since I'm hoping you have it in the
Since you're on, next on the agenda, yes, by all means.
We're gonna discuss this at a later date.
Yes, we'll do some voting later.
You're up.
Yes, Ken?
Article 11 and Article 12.
Yes. The front yard storage, that seemed to stimulate a lot of discussion. And you're only changing one word. I don't say you, but it's only, yeah, just change, you're inserting vessel.
That's right. Well, the reason why there was a lot of discussion is the planning board has had a number of workshops, 2 or 3 workshops on this already, and prior to this hearing. So they had a lot of discussion about the content and what was
In its entirety.
in its entirety. So, but in the public hearing, they said that they were going to endorse the article as printed in the warrant.
Selectmen or the planning board?
Planning board.
Oh, because I thought there had been discussion that the planning board was having another meeting and they may be changing something else. I'm not sure they can't go beyond the article. And just as an aside, anything they change now becomes an amendment on the floor. Because what's written in the article is what's going to be presented.
Right, and that's what the planning board decided that they wanted to
Oh, good.
endorse and approve, was the article as printed in the warrant. So the motion can be as printed in the warrant.
That would make things easier, wouldn't it, Gail? Shaking her head. You couldn't hear it, but it was going up and down.
I figured.
Any questions?
Well, we're not just adding vessel to the wording. We're replacing displayed on public or private way with displayed on privately owned property, not state or town or county or utility-owned property.
Oh, you're talking about the sign bylaw.
That's the next one.
I'm sorry,
That's Article
I'm sorry.
12.
That's Article 12.
This is Article 11.
This is Article 11. I apologize.
It's not just vessel, as they say, that's just for section 530. We're adding the section 535 for outdoor storage.
Right.
Which requires that junk be concealed from public view.
I think it's all well and good. The only thing I have, Ken, is, are they gonna, are they gonna ticket, they're gonna fine, are they gonna, take it to heart? The town. I mean, they write all these laws and then they don't back them up. They don't go out there and, someone complains about it. Seems to take forever to get anything done.
Oh, one of the good things that we did in town meeting was to do the ticketing process, so it's easier to file a complaint and enforce the action.
That's what I meant, enforce it, yeah. All right, so the guy gets a ticket, we send him a ticket, doesn't pay the ticket, what happens?
Take him to court. And the problem is the court isn't always satisfactory in its action.
Okay, but we're gonna waste that, I mean, how much, you know, how much can a ticket be? What's the fines? Is the fines written in there? I haven't read it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what the fines are exactly either.
All
You'd
right,
have to
I mean, it's
research
gotta
it.
be, in order to send someone to court, waste their time, go to court all morning, it's gotta be a significant amount, or it's not. In other
Well,
words, you're gonna,
that's the reason why there's a judgment call by the building commissioner, building inspector, who would go out there and serve on that complaint, to analyze it and to make the determination as to whether or not it was appropriate for an action.
I don't know if this can be done, but I think a better way, rather than take it to court, like if they don't pay the ticket or the fine, put it on their tax bill, or, you know, is there any other way that we can, you know, enforce it, the monetary part of it? That's where I think the town's dropping the ball.
All right, well, that's where in the sign bylaw, you'll see that there's been that change where we actually suggest that the connection be to the town treasurer and the bill that gets sent out.
Yeah, there's gotta be some way to really force people to pay
It's in the
these.
way to article, Dominic.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Say, Ken, is Article 11, is that the one that speaks to fencing to hide?
Yes.
Two questions. One, what's the maximum height on the fence, or who determines the height requirement for a fence for the front yard? Whether 4 foot or 6 foot? I mean, how do you know how high to erect this fence to hide your stuff? And second question would be, how do you enforce telling somebody to get a fence and put it up?
That would be the same way of enforcement through the building commissioner and the issuance of fines.
Okay, so then...
And then the height of it would be determined as to what actually conceals it from public view.
Is there a max height?
Maximum height is 10 feet.
10 feet,
Yeah.
no less than 8, but no more than 10.
That's with any fence, correct? You can't have more than 10-foot fence in town, can you?
It becomes a structure then.
Right, right.
This is actually a follow-up of something last year, I believe, clarification on this article, is it not?
That's
It
right.
was
This
something
was
we
brought
were come
before
before,
last
but
year.
didn't do it.
But this was brought forth last
Further
year.
study, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a finance committee, financial impact. Any,
I think what
where
this,
is it in here if there is?
what it does is it improves property values by getting rid of junk on
Of the neighbors,
of the neighbors.
property value of the neighbors.
Well, it improves the property value of the one with the junk on it too, if that junk is cleaned up.
Until the fence is blown down.
There's a place in town now that all the neighbors' homes are over Wareham and 11th Street. I mean, it's a mess over there, you know? It obviously brings down property value.
Oh, indeed,
You
and
guys got so much junk in the yard, it brings down the neighbor's value tremendously.
and the building inspector was looking for more enforcement ability.
That's what I do, I mean,
And this is supposedly the fruition of his request.
yeah, give them some power, yeah.
So section 530, right now, says no person or property owner shall allow more than one unregistered vehicle, vessel, trailer, etc., on garage on the premise at any time. We're not changing that. That's existing,
Except we're adding that word vessel to that.
and we're defining a little bit more of what outdoor storage is and how it can be concealed. So we're adding definitions so that in the event that someone takes the town to court, we've defined it better.
That's correct.
Clarified.
We've clarified what's going on.
This is a clarity that's necessary in the regulations of the town. The judges will look at as to whether or not it's clear what's the responsibility of the property owner.
Mhm. Oh, I think that's good. I think adding the definition is good. We already have it's in the bylaw already of what you can and cannot do. So we're not really changing that, we're just defining it better. I think it's a good move.
Questions? Any further? No, then why don't we move on to Article 12, which again, comes before us because it was referred to further study. Temporary signs.
Right, so this is, the first part of it on section 1119, subsection 10 is where, when signs are placed up on where they can go, and we're restricting utility poles and traffic signs. And they can be displayed on private property only with the permission of the owner.
Again, you're clarifying the enforcement possibilities, correct?
That's right, what we're saying is we don't want signs everywhere. There's certain places where you can put signs, and that's where, when they're temporary, we don't necessarily want our utility poles to be covered with signs.
So I can't have a yard sale sign still up 1 month after I've had the yard sale.
That too. This is where, in section 1122, is where we add that the fines will be attached to the property tax bill by town treasurer. And that off-premise signs, we're adding some additional restrictions on those ones, that 30-day allowance. And it's not allowed on public or utility company properties. And this is, and then the last part, section 1117, is actually something that was recognized not as a temporary sign, but something that's not clear in the regulations, where a freestanding sign, the sign for business, whatever, what's the setback for that? And it's not really that clear in the regulations. And so what we did was we said, let's give it a 5-foot setback from the right of way. And so that allows the sign to be overhanging from the post. That might be, that's one option, depending on what kind of sign it is.
Now, will that affect signs that are already up, grandfathered, or that rule?
Signs will be grandfathered in accordance with the other parts of the regulation.
Okay, I mean, that
But
setback rule,
Any new sign.
any new sign has to abide, but if you have a sign that doesn't meet that setback now, it's allowed.
grandfathered.
Thank you. That's all I want to know. Because there's probably a lot of them that don't, meet those requirements now,
Signs all over the place,
Thank you.
different forms.
So long as some of these telephone poles are still standing.
Right.
Any further
Held it.
questions, comments?
They're held up by staples.
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
Right.
Any questions?
No, I'm glad to see the review of the bylaws and trying to make them more specific so they're better understood by anyone who's looking at them. I think that's important. When you have ill-defined bylaws, they become difficult to interpret. Everyone has their own interpretation. So I commend you and your staff for going through and doing this.
You'll have to thank others rather than myself in this regard, in doing most of this work on these ones.
Well, thank Dave before he leaves.
The financial aspects are, it clarifies the enforcement, so that when he takes first to court, it is clear to the judge what is supposed to have been enforced, what did.
Right, we're not wasting time in court with judges that aren't going to enforce a law that's not clear.
Well, and also, more than even going to court, I think it's important that the residents of Wareham know what their laws are. They shouldn't have to go hire an attorney to figure out what a bylaw says. It should be clear and easily understood. And I think that's even more than going to court. And you've also established a means of enforcing any fines that go through by attaching them
To the property tax
to the
bill.
property tax.
Right.
Any other questions?
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much, Ken. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do, we've had two things. Well, first of all, why don't we go through the articles we've heard thus far and do some voting? Would you care to? Okay. Starting from, let's see. Article 6 is the capital plan, but I don't think they've, they met the,
They did meet. There are two items presently that were discussed for town meeting. They're both water pollution control facility. There's 82,000 that they're looking as the town's share of a project, engineering project to relocate the outfall to the canal. The town is responsible for 25%, which is 82,000. I believe the state is paying the balance, which is 286,000. That's the next step to go ahead and increase the capacity of the plant. That's one item. There's another one which shouldn't surprise anybody. It has to do with roofing. We should have developed a program in town where we had a department for roofs. I think they would have been fine, but there are 4 buildings in the water pollution control facility that require roof work. They also include asbestos mitigation, insulation, as well as replacing and repairing the roofs. They're looking for $215,000 for that. Those are the two articles that have been proposed so far.
the 82, I'm not sure anyone wants someone from the sewer commission here to explain it more, Guy in particular. For the outfall pipe, I mean, I know where the outfall pipe is going to go and the like, but 82,000, I mean, we haven't even started the project yet, I don't believe, or where it's gonna go.
This is the engineering study to determine
Just that, okay.
where it's going. This is just an engineering study.
Any questions on that? David sits on the committee, so it's appropriate he could answer questions.
When do you feel the budget, the total budget will be done?
For WPCF?
No, for the capital plan, or when will we?
Well, typically, we come before fall town meeting for capital projects within the town. And that's done because we end up using free cash. That's after free cash has been determined. And at that point, we can say, all right, we have 300,000 or $500,000 or $25 that we can put into capital expenditures. So that is outside the normal budget process.
Okay. So what you just described then is for the Article 6, so far there's just those two items in?
Yes,
And I believe, David, these monies will be transferred out of the
Out of-
enterprise fund, the reserve,
yes, WPCF.
so it's not relevant to free cash.
So it won't affect our tax rate.
Okay. As far as that, anyone make a motion to approve? This is our recommendations now that'll go in our warrant.
I'll make a motion to approve. Article 6.
I mean, don't we get any paper? Yeah, to look at?
You've got a personal one, you want paper?
We would like to, unfortunately, there wasn't any available. Maybe we make it a conditional approval based upon those two items.
Based on paperwork becoming before we go to
Town
print,
meeting,
because we'll certainly include that.
Right.
So again, I'll make my motion to approve Article 6.
Okay, Article 6, on the condition we receive paperwork. All those in favor? May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. Unanimous. The
I think we should wait on the budget. 7 is the
Article
budget.
7 is the budget.
We should wait on that.
I believe we've had the presentation, but as I understand it, the selectmen have not finalized their approval yet either. Derek suggested he's still finalizing some figures. So, but the EMS budget, we heard that separately, but it was during the day that we had the all-day presentation.
Make a motion to approve the EMS budget
Presented?
as presented.
Do I have a second?
They're always self,
They are self-funding.
Yes, they're
They're doing
self-sufficient.
great, to be honest with you.
One thing I haven't had yet is I asked what their revenues were, because I want to just verify or show that they are greater than the cost of operating the department. Balance goes into the general fund. Have a motion by Dominic. Could I have a second, please? I have a second by Pat. Any other discussion?
Okay, in the presentation that we had at the all-day presentation, I'd just like to read this into the record. EMS revenue forecast for fiscal year 2019, they're presently at $1,050,000 for this fiscal year. They have 4 months of billing and revenue to receive. In December of 18, they raised their ambulance rates, and Medicare raised their rates slightly. So we expect to get a little bit more money for each call. Medicare rates prior to this have been unchanged since 2008. The same with the town rate and Medicare rate increase. We should see an increase in our collections. We'll continue to see our current revenue trends continue since the town's demographic for ratepayers, with the majority being Medicare and Medicaid, along with managed care plans paying the Medicaid rates. Let's see. In 2018, EMS responded to 4,710 calls. That's a busy group, and it's something that we're very fortunate to have in town.
And in addition to those calls, primarily are responded to by our own ambulances. At one point, we only had one, and we were jokingly saying we were supporting Bourne's ambulance services. But now we are
We
totally...
bought Bourne an ambulance.
Right. Yep.
But that paperwork will also appear in our report as supporting documentation for the article. Okay, motion's been made. Dominic, Pat seconded. Pat? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Unanimous. Upper Cape, we haven't had have they formalized their budget, Dominic?
They have, we're voting on it Thursday night, to pass the budget that's been proposed. It has not been voted on by the school committee, it'll be voted on Thursday, so. You
Okay.
can either wait or wait till next time.
I have just a rough estimate primarily.
Yeah, I brought it to you, but
Right.
that's the one they're gonna vote on. It's not
Okay,
gonna change, but
$3,678,385.
that's the one the Finance Budget Committee is gonna propose Thursday night to the school board.
Okay.
Those are the same numbers.
With respect to that, then, do you wish to wait until they've had a formal vote out of respect to them? Okay.
Yes.
I'll let you know next Wednesday the vote and bring a copy of it. I did bring a copy, but I'll bring you a formal copy next week, okay?
Very good, thank you. Article 10 is the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund. Has everybody received the update that Ellis sent us? There was some, actually, it wasn't actually a real change. He moved some monies around, and he gave Guy, I guess,
An additional
10 more manhole covers?
35,000.
Yes. Any discussion? We have a motion.
I'll move that we approve it.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion approved by David, seconded by Jerry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. We heard Article 11, the zoning bylaw. Would you get a vote on that this evening? If you so, please make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded by David and then Dominic. Any questions? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 12, temporary signs. We heard from Ken again this evening.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's made by David, seconded by Dominic. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. The mandated real estate personal property reevaluation, that's Mass General laws that are requiring us. I don't have a figure, I don't think we had one or got one when we were having our review of all the departments.
Don't believe so. That was the assessor's department.
Will we be?
It's mandated anyway,
I know.
Right.
so whatever it's gonna
But we
cost.
don't know, I know, but we
But I
don't know
think,
what it is. How can you vote on something you
I
don't know
think we
what it
should,
is?
yes, I think we should wait that. Okay, moving on to Article 14, delete the Charter Review Committee. We heard from Chairman of Board of Selectmen last week. Any question, discussion?
I have a question for Pat. You were on that committee last time, right, Pat? Do you think it should be dissolved?
I don't think it should be dissolved at all.
That's what I thought, okay.
Any other concerns?
It's a guideline, you know?
That's why I asked John.
Yeah,
You were on it, you know what they did. I can't see them dissolving it, but
I would oppose dissolving it. I have just the way I feel philosophically, that it should be in the
then
hands of the people.
Yeah.
Then I'll make a motion that we
I have.
vote against it.
Well, okay, make
Okay,
a
how do you
positive,
want to say that?
a positive motion, please, motion to approve, and then we'll vote to negative.
Okay, I'll make a motion for approval.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Nay,
Opposed.
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 It's unanimous. The town meeting process is to make some adjustments in the timing of town meeting, moving the elections, and thereby allowing us a little more time to make our decisions and review the articles. Any discussion?
I have a discussion. May I ask our moderator a question? Claire, are you for this or against it?
Because it comes before me, Dominic, I
Can't
can't,
say.
I can't have an
Okay,
opinion.
that's okay. I just want, that's all right.
Yeah, should you use a light tap of the gavel or a heavy get?
I'll make a
Hang on,
motion that we approve it.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Union contract, we don't have any information. The Littleton Drive parcel, Peter will be here before us next week because it's submitted by or requested through the selectmen by the redevelopment authority.
Okay.
CPC fund reserves, this is very much a housekeeping article for the CPC.
Make a motion to approve Article 18.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Article 19, field and track, resurfacing by CPC.
I propose that we postpone that till next week.
Okay,
I have a meeting at the track tomorrow at 1 o'clock to walk the track with, what's his name? Chris, anyway, yes, Superintendent Shaver Hood set me up with this individual to walk the track, take a look at it, find out what they're planning on doing. And if anyone would like to join me
What time?
at 1 o'clock
At the
tomorrow,
track?
at the track. So I would propose that we put this off for another week.
Okay.
Sounds good. Dave, one thing, if I don't make it, can you just make sure that they address where the water problem is?
Yes,
One of the corners floods real bad.
it's the, as you go into the track, it's the one on, I believe it's the one on the right.
Okay,
Because it's
just
wet
as long
right
as you
now.
know where it is, yeah, it's pretty bad.
It was wet this morning.
All right.
I walked it, but I want to get more information from
Sure, sure.
proponents of it.
Sounds good.
Chris, would that be the athletic director?
I believe so.
Okay, we'll put that on hold. Article 20, we haven't heard from the cemetery commissioners. Would you wish to? It's mainly a appropriation for sales of lots and graves for the management maintenance. Would you
I
wish
ask a
to?
question. What are they trying to accomplish with that?
Okay, well, we can have them before us next week.
You know,
Arrange
I
it.
thought maybe you might have known what they're trying to pull off here.
Other than what's in the
Yeah,
paperwork.
It's a little vague.
Mhm.
A
I
little
agree.
vague, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's kind of vague.
Okay. Article 21 is the grant easement, which we heard this evening.
Okay.
I would recommend we hold off until these selectmen make a vote on it, because they have more insights into what's going on than we do on this.
I just got problems with what happened years ago, that's all.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
I mean,
unfortunate.
it couldn't have been, if that happened now, that he wouldn't have been able to break that property up and sell it. Wouldn't have been allowed.
right?
He got away with it on a handshake before. Now this guy's got, now the town's supposed to patch up this guy making a small fortune, sell his land years ago. Now we gotta fix it. Not the greatest thing in the world. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I know enough.
Sometimes history doesn't play into this.
I know, well,
I'm not opposed in,
but we're
Theory
getting,
too.
but we're taking on liability when we shouldn't have to.
that's the
Okay.
part that bothers me. And again, I'm not sure what we're doing with Tremont and what the future impact is going to be on Tremont.
Would you
There's
like
only
to-
so much you can put through a 2-inch hole.
Would you like me to have
Right.
someone come in next week? Anyone in particular?
The only thing that bothers me is the sewer people voted that it was good. I mean, like Dave said, that, did they think about that, or were they in a hush to vote for it,
Well,
or what happened?
I would suggest that they were looking at it in the context, there's an individual, whether it be commercial or residential, they're asking to patch into the sewer system. They don't have a reason to say no, other than it has to go through other property, i.e. town-owned property, but doesn't make any difference whose property. That's all we're doing because we happen to own the property. A private property owner would have in their deed that they have an easement going through their property. Now, the responsibility of the pipe underneath, whether it clogs up and need repair, et cetera, is responsibility of the person who owns the easement, not of the property owner itself.
But see, an easement wasn't granted before when the
Well,
property
that,
was sold.
please, that was before Dominic,
I
understand.
understand.
They're just addressing the
Okay.
issue, this person comes before us and asks for an easement,
So,
and that's all.
all right.
That's all we can consider, really.
So we only have to go by what is happening right now.
I appreciate your history
No,
and your
no, it's
knowledge,
okay.
I mean, it's very
No,
interesting,
it's
of
not.
course. Please don't misunderstand me.
No, I'm not, no, you know, I don't think you personally, you know that. I just, whatever, let it go. All right.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
No,
Let's see what the selectmen say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see what they say.
Okay, no problem. Article 22, the commercial agriculture regulation. As I said before, the person will, best of my knowledge, won't be back in town until after April, or beginning of April. And I understand, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Gary, I understand from what I've heard that he actually has regulations within what he's able to do to change without having to go through this process to address it. And I didn't find anything in reading their proposal that said anything different than we actually do. Phraseology a little different perhaps, but,
Isn't it the notification and expanding the notification process to a much larger group of people? That's my understanding.
would you like to, would you like to have Gary?
I'd like to see if Gary could give us some additional information on this.
Okay, I'll schedule him. And the charter change from CPC for the inclusion of town meeting warrants.
I got two things to say about that.
Yes.
First, Angus Laban was confused about the bylaws, and I'm confused about her confusion. That's number one. Number two, my other real estate taxes go through the selectmen and so forth and town administrator. I don't see why we need to carve an exception out for this, for CPC.
It was unfortunate she was using as an example a flawed application. That was when the building, the elderly housing was attempting to put those other units, the 4 units. And initially, she was not, and I don't believe the applicant was aware of the flaws in it. Very well intentioned. But when it got to the selectmen, they were able to identify them and point out the flaws, and that's why they refused to put it on the warrant initially. But there was a parallel application by a petitioner, which goes on, obviously, the warrant automatically. But it was flawed. I myself prefer the checks and balance. Admittedly, the approval of CPC and then going to town meeting is a check and balance. But I think I'm more comfortable going through the selectmen. Even though it's an extra path they have to go down, I'm still more comfortable with it. There's a certain level of expertise that is brought to bear through the selectmen. Not individually or personally, but through their office.
Right, in a bigger view, bigger overview
Yeah.
of the town
Mhm.
finances, yeah.
Right, I agree with both of you. I think that we're fortunate right now that we have a CPC group that's responsible and does a very good job, but in an extreme case, you could have a rogue member or a rogue committee going and doing something that would be not necessarily the best interest of the town. I think the checks and balances before we get to town meeting are important, and I would prefer to keep them.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve Article 23.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Clarify the yea and nay vote on this.
A means we approve of it. Nay means we
Approve of what?
approve of the charter change,
Going forward.
application for a charter change.
Which means that,
If we disagree, it should be a nay.
but if we approve, that means that it does not have to go to the selectmen, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Is approved, okay? I have no knowledge yet of what's going on with special, other than our own article to change our terms. I will try to, let's see, next week, I think it closes, yeah. We're gonna try to cram everything in so we can do it before we have to go to print. And something would change. Kelly had advised me that we've actually done it before, or we're doing it previously, is that we take turns, or we have a choice of various articles and do our own explanation
I've done that in the past, yeah.
and presentation, and we read the motion. So being no objections, I'll go through them, and please, love to hear volunteers.
Should we let everyone think about this over the next week and then,
Oh, pooh.
all right,
No, I agree. Being unaware. I agree with David, yes. You're
We'll
forewarned.
take them next week.
Next week,
So should we all come with like 5 articles, or?
Some that you'd like to be, you would be interested in, yes, write
Well,
something
we
up.
have
Because if
23.
you've got something written up, it's you're the one.
So we have 23, plus another 5 or 6 on special?
Correct.
So let's say 30, and there's 9 of us, is that how you see it?
Mhm.
Dividing 30 by
Yeah.
9? Or?
Now, there's some we won't do, obviously. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5. Occasional reports. Gail, have you any intentions, or if anybody asked to report, such as the building committee or anything of that nature? Because they are articles that were passed, so.
I have not heard of anybody that's gonna give reports.
Okay, so we assume they're not. We have the capital plan, we can start with Article 6. Gee whiz, Article 9, Upper Cape. Who might you think we could volunteer for
No,
that?
I'll do it.
The enterprise fund, anything else we could eliminate? Union contracts, we won't do that.
Yeah, you gotta try to figure out which ones will be consent, yeah.
Yeah. And if they're, no, nothing to say, there's so mandated in Article 13, we don't do that. Anything else you think we could exclude?
What about you exclude union contracts?
Yes, Article 16 will exclude.
Yeah, we're still gonna have to write something about it.
I think that's good.
Kelly, we still write something about every one though.
Well, we do, but
Yeah.
it's
It's
pretty
pretty
much
boilerplate.
basic. Right, exactly.
You've got a lot of those already boilerplated out, okay.
And what else we have? Let's see. Pheasant, special. David, you had suggested an alternative way of writing the articles. Unfortunately, the only ones we could do that to would be our own. The other people have to do it. David's suggestion was, instead of replicating the motion, would say the paragraph in a zoning change.
This is for zoning and bylaw changes.
Yeah. And you want to speak to
Yes.
it?
When we have a zoning or bylaw change, if we're modifying an existing paragraph, I find it easier if we put the initial paragraph in there, line out anything that we're deleting, put in bold anything we're adding. So someone who's looking at it can easily see what was there originally, what the change is.
Yeah,
And,
good idea.
And this is an example of one that I did with the line out and bolding, where the bold would be the changes. I just think for clarity's sake,
You did.
I find it easier to understand.
I think the general public will too.
Definitely, that makes more sense. I've seen that.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's
it
a
seems
good
more
idea.
clear to try and go from, you got one
What was
paragraph
changed,
and,
what wasn't, yeah.
And then read that you've changed the third line, second word, from is to was. And wait a moment, where is it?
Yeah, right.
I'll make that suggestion to Ken. He'd be the writer of those. Oh, and we have a clarification on the original documentation for membership when terms expired. Stuart was erroneously indicated he was in his second term. He's actually in his first term. But it's all been adjusted anyway. And we have the vacancy of Ellis, and I've recruited someone. I've invited Tom to come back, and on Monday we have an appointing committee, 10 o'clock. And Tom, I have his application, copy of his driver's license, son of a gun, he's older than I am.
He's a hot
Well, maybe we shouldn't have them then.
Oh, you're putting a cap on the H now? You all have copies of my invitations to the chairman of the school committee for a meeting on April. I got a copy here and I think I left the date off. Oh, no, excuse me. April 3rd, on a Wednesday, to give us a detailed report for the finance regarding Article 16, which was the feasibility committee. And the reason I wanted that, I'm gonna do my paperwork now. Oh no, here it is. In the final report that they gave dated September 18th, FY 18 end of year report, it has Article 16, which was the feasibility study, as having an amount, and of course, oh wait, I marked it, no wonder I can't find it. That Article 18, minor building feasibility study, $1,689,359. I do hope Sue made an error of some kind, because we only appropriated $1 million. So I'd like to have an explanation of where the rest came from. And we have supposedly on Article 6, which is the last year's town meeting appropriating the $90 million. The last paperwork, there was where there was a slide projected of 1.4 million has been encumbered, supposedly. But no detailed information. The committee moved on to the color of the stone in the face of the building, so I was concerned that they didn't ask for any details. So, asked Jeff, who is the chairman of the committee, and the article appropriated the monies to the committee, not to the school department. And so he is the person who I invited to give us an explanation as to what has been encumbered, what has been spent thus far, and a projection of that regard. And also, Stuart sent a email directed at Jerry to come up with some ideas of their process. Their current process, as I understand it, is the OPM, which would be PMA, submits any invoices to a committee or group of 3 people made up of the committee. They in turn review them and sign it. One of them signs it. And that invoice is sent to now the school committee, which will appear on their warrant. They have an individual designated that signs off the warrant, and then it goes over to Judy, the accountant, for payment. The reason they did that is so the invoices won't sit around waiting for the next committee meeting, but the following committee meeting, they're supposed to present a detailed report as to the invoices they signed off on. Unfortunately, from my point of view, the chairman has designated the superintendent of schools to signing off on those payments. And I've emailed him suggesting that, no, I feel that the wrong person, it should have someone who at least has a background in construction and building maintenance. Designated person would have been David, the director of building maintenance, yes. Never heard back. And I think the town accountant, my discussion with her, it was her feeling that she would prefer someone for signature who has some kind of experience. If the accounts are ever audited, it seems more reasonable that someone who has a background in it has signed it versus the superintendent of schools, who I say for all, meaning no disrespect, is more focused on education than construction. That was my take on it. But anyway, I will see them April 3rd. Okay, our next meeting is next Wednesday, same time, same place.
Same place.
Before we adjourn, any other concerns? Any questions? I will invite those people that we referred to come to our next meeting.
Very good.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You have to vote.
You have some reading, I guess, huh?